Hell Let Loose, a game that has made me laugh, cry, and rage.
Oh my god, holy shit,
has recently had its roadmap revealed for 2023, and there are plenty of things to look forward to. Some people are, however, concerned about the idea of an in-game shop being implemented. I'd imagine similar to what Squad has done, but the original devs, Black Matter, are no longer in the picture, and Team 17 has taken the reins by releasing a pretty ambitious roadmap, and I'm sure we're all excited, and I do hope they stick to it and they don't overpromise and underdeliver like many other games have done in the past. But I do wish them all the best with their development. But starting us off, I want to talk about the major additions to the game, and that is new factions. We have the British, which will see the addition of new weapons and vehicles. In terms of weapons, I'd imagine the British will be getting the Lienfield, which in a game like Proscriptum is really satisfying to use because it has a shorter bolt pool, and I imagine going one-on-one against a Kar 98, you'll be able to get more shots off quickly, and you also do get double the amount of ammo that you can put into the weapon. I imagine this would be the standard infantry weapon the British get, and the automatic rifleman class most likely will get the Sten gun, which is a side-loading submachine gun that fires 9mm ammo that fits into a 32 round magazine. But other possible guns include the Bren gun, and for an LMG it's pretty slow firing with its 500 rounds per minute. For example, the Browning has around I think 600 rounds per minute, and on the complete opposite side of the spectrum you have the MG42, which fires 1550 rounds per minute, and that's a pretty big part of my Hell Let Loose induced PTSD. In terms of anti-tank weaponry, there's the Piat or Piat. I imagine it's pronounced like Fiat.
You know what they say Ford stands for, don't you? It stands for fix it again, Tony.
You're thinking of a Fiat, Dale.
It does get a little mount, if you want to call it that you can use to rest the weapon on, and the roadmap does mention quality of life improvements, and a big one that I want is the ability to rest or brace weapons against an edge. But if this thing gets the same mechanic that machine guns would get, where you can mount or brace it, whatever you want to call it, I think they'll be a nice addition to give this weapon if they do go ahead with adding it. They did use an anti-tank rifle called the Boys anti-tank rifle. It's going to be such a pain if this is what they make the level 1 class for the anti-tank to be, and I say this because I still haven't unlocked the rocket launcher for the Soviets, and using the PTRS is just frustrating. I understand it has its uses and can be very effective, but compared to a rocket launcher it just doesn't stack up in my opinion. But what about potential vehicles? I find when it comes to tanking, from a pop culture perspective, the German tanks are always the main attraction, and this is reflected in games like World of Tanks and War Thunder, where people always try to get the Tiger and the Panther, and they end up getting destroyed because the matchmaking puts them against tanks that were specifically designed to counter them.
Oh shit, oh shit, oh. Are you fucking kidding me, Khan?
But my favorite British tank, which is apparently confirmed to be going into the game, and while it does bear a strong similarity to the Shermans, actually that's a bit of an understatement. The Firefly is literally just a Sherman with a fat British gun, and when you look at the Sherman tank as a whole, you realize that they're like Lego. You can mix and match it in many different ways. You can have an anti-air Sherman, a Sherman to clear mines, a Sherman that has a big fat 76mm cannon, or a flamethrower. Heck, you even have the French Sherman with its big fat 105mm cannon that saw combat in the 6-Day War on the side of the Israelis. But this tank was a prime target for the Germans, and I hope they do give it the barrel camouflage, which was done to make it look like a short 75. One interesting thing from my research, and don't quote me on this, but apparently the Firefly doesn't have a hull machine gun. Well, it did technically, but it was removed to make more space for more ammo, but this means it'll most likely be the first heavy tank in the game to not have that driver ability, which I think is pretty significant. A large reason why I like the Stuart over all other light tanks is because I can drive around like a madman and use that machine gun to pull off some clutch shots to shut down someone with a rocket launcher. While the Firefly is considered a medium tank in real life, similar to the Panther, I'd imagine it'll be labeled a heavy for gameplay reasons. I would still love to see the Churchill get added, but that's pure speculation. The medium might be the Cromwell, which is incredibly fast, but I assume they'd nerf the speed just like they did with most other tanks, and the light could be the Crusader. Overall, seeing a new major faction implemented is great, and I hope it doesn't get pushed aside when it comes to map rotation, because I feel like I very rarely get to play as the Soviets, which is unfortunate because while people might disagree with me, I really like the Soviet maps, especially Stalingrad and Kursk, primarily for tanking, but that's mostly what I do these days in Hell Let Loose. The next major addition to the game is the Finnish and Polish forces, because it's great to see some, I need to pick and choose my words very carefully, but not so popular countries get attention, and I just need to stress that I'm not calling Poland a minor country in World War II. I just mean that someone who isn't too versed in history won't know a whole lot about these countries other than the fact that Poland got invaded, and they also apparently only used horses against German tanks, which the reason why I mention that is because I remember being a child and watching a documentary on World War II, and that was one thing that really stood out to me, and this was before I could go off and do my own research on the topic. However, I have been told and did a little more research that the cavalry units were mostly used against infantry, but I very much do distinctly remember watching this documentary and they were trying to hit the tanks with like the pokes or the sticks. That just stood out to me, so I thought I'd just include that. I can say with strong confidence, and I'm willing to bet my nuts on this, that a fair amount of people don't even know that the Soviet Union participated in the invasion of Poland. Heck, I've even seen some groups completely defend that and say that the USSR could do no wrong. Like, you'd ask them, oh, what happened to the grain? And they joke and say that Stalin ate it with a big spoon. These people, man. But staying on topic, I bet a fair amount of these people didn't even know that the USSR invaded Finland, which is why we also get the pleasure of the Winter War being added to Hell Let Loose. RS2 has a mod for this, and it's absolutely great. It has tanks, new weapons, commander abilities, and it also maintains that RS2 gameplay flow, which is just the main reason why I love RS2, but it isn't that popular these days, but you usually can participate during the Finnish Independence Day on December 6th, where usually a couple of servers host an event for it. But back to Hell Let Loose, the interesting thing is how will vehicles work? The devs have said in their video that they'll model unique weapons, clothing, and vehicles for this specific theater of war, but there wasn't a plethora of different kinds of vehicles used in this war. There are other things that might need to be adjusted if they want to have some semblance of historical accuracy, such as the Katusha rocket launcher apparently wasn't used or even a thing until 1941. I don't even believe the PPSH-41 was a thing back then, and from the research that I've done, apparently it was made in response to the Finnish Suomi KP-31, but I could be entirely wrong. I do hope they add the skiing mechanic. They even put skis on the official roadmap, so hopefully they do something like that. Some other things that I just want to mention quickly is there will be a Battle of Danzig map. However, this is a point of concern for a fair amount of people because this isn't a normal sized Hell Let Loose match. Apparently it'll have like I think 25v25, and while I'm not opposed to smaller game modes that don't last over 1.5 hours, some say that separating these two game modes could be detrimental, especially since how does it run on a server level? You can't just go from a 100-player server down to a 50-player server, and even if you have dedicated servers for it, I doubt it'll be popular because RS2 has a skirmish mode, and if you haven't played it, it's actually really fun, and I've hosted a couple events way in the past. I need to do it more often. I apologize for people in my Discord, but we got together in a Discord call and we played around with it, and it's genuinely a fun game mode, and it's completely dead, and I'm willing to put a fair amount of confidence if Hell Let Loose were to do something similar, it would end up dead as well, but that's just my opinion. The next thing I want to talk about is quality of life improvements, which is something being implemented from April. Some of the future updates, we can see there will be an ability to communicate basic things without the need of a microphone. I imagine it'll be something similar to what RS2 has with the contextual menu. Some people might say this would just make people not want or need to use a mic, which is very vital in this game. And funnily enough, at the time of writing this script, there is a glitch going around that's been screwing up voice chat. On the other hand, I think it's a needed addition, because if people for whatever reason don't want to use a mic, whether that's because they're shy or don't own a microphone, or if the voice chat's broken, or they don't speak English, or you find yourself accidentally playing on the German only speaking server, at least there's a fallback mechanism. They want to improve player locomotion, and in the video they mentioned mantling, which is a widely used thing in games like Squad. I would love this because it means you can climb over a lot of the walls in Carrington, as well as it does open up new gameplay possibilities. One way I can see this being used is hopping on your mate's head to get a shot off at a tank with a rocket launcher if you're behind a wall, but I can understand some people saying that this isn't realistic and it's just goofy and arcades the gameplay a little bit, or a little bit more. I do hope they improve the sprinting though, because I've said this in the past and I'll say it again. I just hope, or I wish that the character would run with a little more purpose, a little gusto, you know? I know it's a war zone, I know your family's probably dead and you're malnourished, but if you could run slightly faster so the bombing run doesn't turn you into red mist, I think that'll be great. There will be a new tutorial system, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm not going to be too fussed if it's something like squads or postscriptums type firing range thing, as long as it explains how the game modes work, how the spawn, supply, resource mechanics, as well as stresses the fact that you will die a lot and to expect to get blasted from 200 meters away from something that you have no idea who or what or where killed you. But I'm finally happy that they've caved and are actually implementing it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the implementation of more DLC as well as the in-game store. People have mixed feelings about this. Some believe they will prioritize monetizing the game as well as catering to an even more casual audience as opposed to other more needed content updates. But on the other hand, Team 17 did buy Hell Let Loose for a substantial amount of money, and if you want them to stick around adding more factions, maps, and game modes, they have to be making a profit, which might not be compensated by new game sales, but I'm personally not going to have too much of an issue with it, especially since RS2 had paid cosmetics, and I know some very intense historical buffs might be able to point out the historical inaccuracies. I found it still maintained a strong Vietnam tone, and as long as Hell Let Loose sticks to that and doesn't implement pay-to-win elements or really goofy looking skins that were only drawn on a napkin and never entered service, which is literally half the tanks in World of Tanks, I'm sure the game will be fine. All in all, if they stick to everything on the roadmap being implemented, I tip my hat to the developers, because this is a lot to get done. They did mention in the developer video that they want to implement a key part of history starting from 1939, which is this year, and ending in 1945. This might mean we'd get a Pacific Theater, but honestly I'd rather an entirely new game with Unreal Engine 5, but nonetheless, if you like this Hell Let Loose video, I know you'll like the video that is on screen. Anyways, my name is Tantu, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.